hoping some of you can hop on here tonight. I'm Hannah Stoffel. I'm your certified health coach. My passion is teaching women how to eat to look and feel their best. And I'm so excited tonight to be, I've invited Toni Marinucci. She's a registered dietitian. I've invited her to join us to talk about emotional eating. And this is something I think so many of us can relate to, at least on some level. I know I can. We're going to be talking all about emotional eating, defining what emotional eating is. And I've never gone live before, and it's saying, hang on, we're telling more followers to join your video. So hopefully you guys can hear me right now. I don't think anybody's hopped on yet, but I know a lot of people watch the replay. So Toni will be hopping on here in just a minute, and we will get started. So, all right, awesome. So, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and let Toni come on here. I'm going to have her introduce her story, and we're just going to dive right into talking about emotional eating, and can't wait to get started. So, here we go.
Hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, that's so much better. Yes,
okay,
I can hear you much better.
Awesome.
I'm so excited to be on here.
Thanks for coming. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about emotional eating, because I know this is something that I certainly can relate to, and most of my clients can relate to it. But I feel like it's one of those things that we're never really taught how to deal with it, and ways to address it and get to the real heart of the issue, the emotions behind the eating. So I'm so excited to hear your story and hear, what you have to share with us.
Sure.
So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone your story, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Awesome. My name is Toni Marinucci. I am a registered dietitian. I provide online nutrition counseling for those struggling to learn how to eat, knowing when to eat. And usually there is some sort of emotional attachment to the food. Not always. That's not my main. I don't say I only work with people who struggle with emotional eating, but it tends to be a big part of my population. What's interesting is a lot of people don't even recognize that they have issues with emotional eating until we get them to start focusing on their nutrition, and they realize, wow, I eat when I'm anxious and I'm sad, or I'm angry or mad, or I just didn't, I got pissed at my boss, so I just decided to, overeat or whatever it is. So I really just help them to kind of develop a healthier relationship with food and kind of disassociate that they are correlated. And then in general, I just want people to just live a healthier, more fulfilling life. And I think that nutrition is a fundamental component of that.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I love what you said, that some of your clients don't recognize the emotions attached, because I've had one client say to me, only one ever, she's like, oh, well, I don't emotionally eat. Like, I don't have emotions around food.
Yeah, it's very rare. It's very rare. I would say probably, and men do it too. Men definitely can be emotional eaters as well. Yeah. But I would say if you are going to argue, then that people don't, then the male population tends to not have it as strong. But as females, I think it's just natural with our hormones. Right. If you have your period, you're going to get them at some point. You're going to emotionally eat at some point. So true. And if you don't, give me whatever birth control you're on.
It's so true. Yeah, definitely the hormonal cycle of a woman, you definitely have days of the month where it's just working against you.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah.
So awesome. Was there anything else you wanted to share before I ask you these questions?
Yeah, so one thing that I think is important for people to know is I think it helps that people know that I have struggled with emotional eating. I didn't really tell a lot of people about it. I was never really one to tell anyone about my feelings or anything. I just hid behind everything all the time. But I also didn't even know I really had the problem either until, unfortunately, I lost my best friend to suicide when I was 23 years old. Yeah, and it put me into like, so I grew up overweight, and then I changed my eating habits, and I started losing weight and feeling better, and I had like more self-confidence, and all of that kind of grew. But then when I was 23 and that happened, it really brought me back to a really dark place. And I really started to think of like what she must have been going through, the insecurity she must have been feeling. And I realized that for so long, I kind of was running away from that. And because even though I was helping myself through nutrition and exercise, and I was learning better ways to cope, I never really was getting to like the root issue of like, where are these emotions coming from?
Yeah.
And I actually started going to therapy, and I'm not a therapist, I'm a registered dietitian. So I help people with the reactions to their emotions and utilizing food and giving them strategies around it. But anyone that I counsel that has issues with emotional eating, I recommend they go to therapy, because it wasn't until I started going to therapy that I realized that a lot of these emotions that I was feeling and how it kind of just all came up after my friend passed away was really related to things that I never dealt with in my past, of growing up overweight and being made fun of and still not seeing myself as that person. And, never, like I said, I never told anyone how I felt because my sister struggled with anxiety and depression. And it's just like, I felt like there was no room for me to talk about my feelings. So when you don't talk about something and you stuff it with food, right?
Yeah,
like you don't know what else to do. So when you then, through therapy and, learning how to release your emotions in other ways and other outlets, you then realize like, okay, food doesn't have to be my only answer. If anything, it shouldn't be my answer, because it just goes into that cycle, that vicious cycle, that, the over under eating terrible cycle that I hope everyone can break in life.
Right. I know. Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely.
So,
wow, what a powerful story.
Yeah, I probably should share it more, because like I said, I really don't, and it's definitely something that I think can help a lot of people. I've struggled with saying, maybe it's not my story, but it is my story. I was just affected, through a different way. So
definitely. And I definitely understand the grieving aspect of losing someone you love and are close to. And yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about emotional eating, how do you define it? Because I feel like when we tend to think of like someone, maybe like eating in secret, or like shoving cookies in their mouth over the sink while their kids are like yelling in the background. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, those definitely, can be classified as emotional eating, but honestly, it's so much larger than that. Really, all it is if you have a feeling of discomfort and you're trying to satisfy that feeling, that's emotional eating. So it could even be you're bored. And people say I eat out of boredom. Well, you're trying to fix that problem. So it's literally looking at food as the solution. So it doesn't always have to be like you went through something traumatic and you're hysterical crying and you're just like, oh, screw it, I'm going to eat. Or like you have the tub of ice cream. Like, it's not that dramatic, although it can be. And then I'm not saying, and then, that is something we need to pay attention to. But a lot of times it's the very little things. Like, actually, one of my clients, we were just talking about how she hosts these parties, and it's part of her job and it's part of her work, and she obviously wants to make a good impression, but there's always like a setup situation. It's like about 30 minutes, right? And it's a little awkward, and she mentioned it causes her a little bit of anxiety. She gets a little bit anxious, and that's when she noticed that she goes for the chips. It's just something to do to help her kind of calm her nerves before she knows she has to like put on a show, because she's about to host a party for sale. Like she's trying to she does like pocketbook parties and stuff like that. So that alone is emotional eating. You feel anxious, and so you go to food, right? So you feel sadness and you go to food, or you feel boredom and you go to food. So it's a feeling and the reaction is food. That's what we would classify as emotional eating.
Okay. What if at the same time, and this isn't a question I put in there.
That's okay.
It popped in my head. What if at the same time that you're feeling that emotion? So like, I know for optimizing digestion, you don't ever want to eat when you're stressed and angry, because then you're not digesting your food properly, and this doesn't help with any of our health and wellness and beauty goals, like eating for clear skin. You don't want to be eating stressed in a stressful situation. So what if you're feeling this emotion, but you're also actually really, truly hungry? What's the solution?
Good point. Take a breath. Literally take a breath. And sometimes too, that anxiety could be coming from the fact that you didn't eat. So although there might be a trigger, like, you know, your kids pissed you off, your husband pissed you off, you know, you're angry, you're mad, but you're also hungry, we then have to recognize that, okay, this is like, this hangriness
yeah, it is
literally coming from like a mental and physiological place. So I just need to take a breath, and if I eat something, this will make me feel better, but because physiologically I need to eat.
I need food. Yeah.
And then that actually might help you calm down, and then might help you de-stress. So although we don't want to eat when we're stressed, sometimes it actually does give that calming effect, and it could be beneficial.
It does. You know? Oh, totally.
Yes.
When you're hungry.
So, yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
So it's always a certain situation, but you have to assess the situation and decide what's the best game plan.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, what are some common triggers for emotional eating? And then are there any tricks for like recognizing the trigger and then channeling that energy somewhere else?
100%. So triggers are usually location and time of day. So it's very rarely is it ever going to be like, and this is like what I'm saying, it's like day-to-day stuff. Like you might have like, you know, an anniversary of someone's death, like once a year, you know, that could be an obvious trigger, but like the day-to-day triggers are usually like, for moms especially, I find that their biggest trigger is like when the kids are finally asleep.
Yeah.
And,
oh my gosh. And it's like a pantry raid.
Yeah. Because it's your way of like de-stressing. It's your way of like, oh, it's my time. Like I've been taking care of other people all day long. Like this is the way I'm going to treat myself, you know? So it really becomes more than just about the food. It's not even about the food. Like, honestly, it's like, sometimes it's like, oh, this tastes good, I want to keep tasting it. But most of the times it's like, it's your way of relaxing, you know? So time of day and location. So what I would say is if you recognize either one of those, it's picking and choosing what you can do instead. So it might be like just getting yourself out of, if it's the living room that triggers you, get yourself out of the living room, go downstairs or go upstairs or go to the kitchen, or, you know, change where you are and give yourself something to do if you're not genuinely hungry, right? So give yourself something to do that's distracting. It could be writing in your journal, like write out your feelings. How are you feeling? Where is this coming from? It could be just like chewing a piece of gum because that just distracts you. It could be calling a friend, reading a book. Maybe you just need to relax, and reading can help you kind of calm down. Sometimes what I spoke with some of my clients is like they realize like, although yes, they want their like me time, going to bed a little bit earlier actually makes them feel better because they get adequate sleep. Right. And it's just like, all right, I'm going to bed. I'm going to turn off. Like, although I might be hungry or craving something or just like wanting to eat something, I know that I've done this before. I've been here before. It doesn't feel good. I wake up every morning with regret. I'm just going to go to bed. And it's like just switching it off and just telling yourself like, this is what I'm going to do instead. So that's probably the best strategy that people will do is like, I might tell them to like have like sleepy time tea, like a decaffeinated tea, or just like an herbal tea that's like naturally decaffeinated. Or, you know, just to help kind of keep them, like to calm them down and then just keep them distracted and then, you know, just turn in. Sometimes people notice that TV watching triggers them. So I might tell them, that's when I might say read a book instead of watching TV. Other people say that the TV actually distracts them. Like they get into like a good, you know, Netflix show or something and it's a good distraction. The trick is being able to turn that off and go to bed at a decent hour so you can get adequate sleep. Exactly. Because it's a cycle.
Not like binge watching.
Yeah.
Staying up till midnight. Yeah.
Exactly.
as a mom, like one thing that's helped me, because you really hit the nail on the head with
Mm-hmm.
the bedtime. It can be a very stressful thing. And then it's kind of like, oh, finally I'm alone. It's
Yep.
me time. Um, but one thing that's helped me is brushing my teeth
Yep.
before I put my kids to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already done. And like, I spend a lot of time on my teeth. So when I am like, okay, well, I kind of want to eat something to relieve that stress or satisfy that emotion. But then I'm like, do I really want to go through that whole process of brushing my teeth again? And
Correct.
it's like, no, because it's a
Mm-hmm.
very thorough thing. So like having something like already, I've already got like this clean mouth, and then it's like, do you really want to eat? I feel
Right.
like that's been the thing that's helped me the most is
Yeah, for
doing
sure.
that.
For sure. I'll tell people to, yeah, brush their teeth or even like take a shower. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just need to give yourself, you need to give yourself 30 seconds. 30 seconds of doing something separate so you can talk yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the second that people decide to give in that it's
Mm-hmm.
game's over.
Right.
So you just gotta give yourself those minutes and like you are in control. And
Absolutely.
remember why you're doing it. Like I'll go over this
Yes.
a billion
Your
and
why.
trillion times over again.
Yeah.
Remembering your why, like you need to
Mm-hmm.
review that thing like every day.
You're
Like,
right.
why are you even doing it? Why does this matter? If you
That's
want
it.
to, have a frenzy, have a frenzy. But if it doesn't, if you have no health goals or whatever, go for it.
Right.
But if you have certain health goals in place and you want to reach those goals,
Mm-hmm.
you have to remember why you're doing it.
Why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love that. And
Yeah.
oh, yeah, you're right. And with clients, I feel like that's one thing that you're always having to go back to.
Yep.
What is your why? How's your life going to be different
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you reach these goals?
Yeah.
So, okay, what are your thoughts on like traditional dieting and how it relates to emotional eating? So, like this yo-yo kind of cycle of dieting and like diet hopping, does that trigger emotional eating? And if so, like what's a better, more productive solution?
Well, it obviously depends on the type of diet, but for most people, when they go on a diet, they usually are restricting themselves of calories. They might not be eating balanced meals. They might just think under eating means that they'll be healthier, which we know isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually the way in which they go about their diet that probably isn't going to help them because, when we deprive ourselves of certain nutrients or certain food groups, those cravings come on stronger. So now we're dealing with the emotion and the physiological cravings, which we just talked about before. When you let yourself get physically hungry and you have emotions, it's a terrible combination. So it's usually not the best to restrict yourself of calories or a certain food group or anything like that. It's usually best to include all food groups. Really ask yourself, like, how much of my day and of my week is more like whole foods, and then how much is like processed foods or even like just like fatty fried foods. Like we don't realize, like, sometimes the opposite of that is like overeating or not eating the best foods makes us feel worse, and then we just continue to do it. It's kind of like, I gave up, so may as well throw in the towel and keep going, and then we feel sad about it, and that leads to more overeating, and it's just like it's like a negative cycle. So the best way to kind of pull yourself out of that is to remember to look at food as nutrition and fuel, and start to recognize that we need to eat food, but we need to eat the right types of food.
Right.
And then usually with a more balanced diet, we start to feel good. We feel better. We have less emotional kind of like ups and downs. It's normal to have emotions. It's normal to feel sad one day and happy the next day. It's just a matter of, we don't want that roller coaster to be like up. We don't want it to be like this type of roller coaster. We want it to be like a little baby roller coaster.
Right. That's my kind of roller coaster anyway.
Yeah. It's normal. Like, you're never going to have perfect days. Like, it's just a matter of dealing with the emotions better. But obviously, it's easier to deal with less drastic changes in emotions than it is to deal with drastic ones.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like my favorite question. I can't wait to ask you this. Is it always wrong to, and I kind of even hate using that word wrong, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, is it when we give in to emotional eating, is it always a bad thing? Should we sometimes be doing it? And my thought behind that is like, doesn't food invoke certain emotions in us? So if I recreate a meal from my childhood that like my mom used to give me, to me, that gives me a certain emotion and I'm eating it. Is that, how does that come into play? So like, is it wrong? Or if I'm incredibly stressed or something and I just give in to emotional eating, is that sometimes good for us, or is it always like
It's a great question. I think with anyone, with any goal, anything I tell people is it always feels better when we've made the choice and the decision. So if you're feeling a certain way and your mom's mac and cheese or like a little bit of ice cream, like really makes you it brings you back to that place and really makes you feel better, and you can have like a controlled amount just to like give you that comfort feeling, that's okay. And you made the decision in your head that you're going to do it. The problem becomes is when we constantly do it and then we have it in abundance. But from like every once in a while, like it's okay to use food as that way to kind of bring us that comfort. It's usually the mindset behind it.
Okay.
You know, it's like, it's almost kind of slightly planned.
Right.
Versus like like an immediate reaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
like
love
it's,
that.
yeah.
Like it's your decision.
Yeah. It's totally different.
Exactly. And that's, you know, I teach a very similar thing with my clients. It's like, it's not that you can't ever have cake, but you want to be deciding to have it. And then you sit
100%.
down and you really enjoy it. And then when it's done, you put it behind you and you let it go. It's like, you don't say, oh, tomorrow I have to go run 4 miles because I ate cake.
Exactly.
I think that has so much power. I feel like we go through so much of our day, like especially with the dieting cycle, not making decisions about food. And people aren't really connecting with what they're eating. It's like, well, I'm just eating this because it's on my diet. But yet there's no connection. You know?
Honestly, the biggest thing that I struggle with, and you probably do too, because I know we have a similar approach, is, you know, with my clients, like they're working, like they're thinking of what they have to eat. They're documenting what they're eating. We're working. We're both working. They're not just working. I'm working with them, but they're working. I'm not just telling them, here, follow this.
Right.
Like I'm making them bring awareness and having them make decisions.
Yep.
And people sometimes don't want to do that, but in order to create behavior change for long-lasting success, you have to know why you're doing it. You have to create the behaviors behind it, and you know, you have to put in the work like anything in life. If you want results and you want to be successful, you don't. No one just like gives you money. You have to work for your money.
You have to work for your money.
like some people are real fortunate.
Yeah, right. I know. Oh, I love that. It's so true. Yeah, and I definitely have that very similar approach with my clients. It's like that because they do. It's like if they're not vested in it and they're not thinking about it and becoming aware, then as soon as we stop working together, the success is going to disappear, right?
Exactly.
Because
and you want them to talk about you, and you want them to learn how to eat, not just like fix their problem for the short term. That's what all diets do. They fix the short term. That's what diets do.
They're short term. Exactly. Which is why you have to yo-yo.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does attaching like our self-worth to our food choices affect us? So a lot of my clients, like one of the first things we do is change their language around food, because they'll say things like, I was really good today because I had a salad and grilled chicken at lunch. Or I was bad because I ate whatever. And you know, breaking that dieting language and then helping them realize that like your self-worth isn't attached to your food choices. So how does that relate to our emotional decisions around food? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a lot deeper than just emotional eating and just like that association. A lot of times it has to do with food is a sense of control. So very similar to what we were just saying before. And so I don't even think they realize it's the food that's making them good or bad. I think it's the fact that they took control and they took action, and that makes them feel good. And so then therefore they have more self-worth. Versus like, if you know what I mean, versus like, I lost all control today. I wanted to do this. I didn't do that. So now I'm mad at myself about it. So I don't think they mean it in a way of like healthy food. If I eat healthy food, I'm a better person. If I eat less healthy food, I'm not a better person. I think it's like kind of a more longer, like kind of approach to it, or I don't really know how to explain myself, but
it's kind of a hard question.
Yeah, but like I know what you're saying and it makes perfect sense, but I think it's a lot more about like they're associating like it's hard to explain.
It is. So like the original question was, how does attaching our self-worth to our food choices affect us? And does that relate to emotional decisions we make around food?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that it does, because if someone's thinking that, you know, they ate cake and that therefore they did a bad job, and now they think like, oh, I'm the worst, like I couldn't stick to my plan, you know, so now I don't feel good about myself, so now I'm just going to continue to kind of go off track. Yeah, it does kind of go hand in hand. But to be honest, I think that when people start to eat healthier, I want to kind of flip it to more positive. Like when people start to eat healthier and take care of their bodies, like I think part of giving yourself proper nutrition is part of self-care. And when we take care of ourselves, we start to believe that we are worthy and we start to see ourselves in a different way. So I don't think that someone should beat themselves up about it if they don't eat healthy. But I will say if they are looking for more self-confidence, more self-worth, to see themselves in a better light, taking care of themselves more and doing that through nutrition will help them get there. Will lead to that. But it's about the balance of, you know, you can still have a piece of cake, but you want to mostly be eating healthy.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So what tips do you have for us to keep our emotions in check around food? And what can we do to avoid letting our emotions control the decision making around
Absolutely. Food? So it actually starts with like nothing to do with food. So like I was saying earlier, if you're really struggling with emotions, go seek a therapist and really get to the nit and grit of it. Figure out what's going on. There's no shame in going to therapy. I've been going to therapy since I was like literally a teenager for multiple different reasons, because throughout your life you go through multiple different things. You know, I've jumped therapists. I've seen 3 different therapists in my lifetime. Like sometimes you work with one at first and then not so much as you get older. Like you're growing. So you need to grow. So if you have the same therapist for the past 20 years and you're not changing, or they're not, you know, you don't see any growth, change therapists. So you might already be in therapy, but you need a different one, you know? So that might be, you know, something I would say. Starting your morning off right, like, or ending your day in a way. I think the morning and the ends of the day are usually the best times for something like journaling. Check in with yourself. Not enough time. People don't check in or slow down. So a lot of times too, it's like these decisions are just happening so rapidly because you never slowed down, took a breath. That breathing, it's like one simple breath can make such a difference. And these are all just suggestions that people can like try one thing, and then if it doesn't work, try something else, or eventually do all of them, because the combination's awesome. Incorporating some sort of meditation that kind of helps calm your nerves a little bit. So maybe if you struggle with anxiety, taking a few moments to yourself. I use the Headspace app. It's very helpful. They have other meditation apps as well. And then the immediate thing is you have to remember, I always tell people when it comes to emotional eating, food is that immediate satisfaction. So it's very similar to if you're using drugs or drinking alcohol to kind of mask your feelings. The difference between drugs and alcohol and food is drugs and alcohol take time to get into your system. they're also either illegal or, you know, kind of slightly frowned upon to have too much of. So it's not as, it's, you know, although people do struggle with addiction and we know that, it's not as easily accessible, and you are kind of forced to think about your next decision. Like you have, you're forced to, if you're drinking, like, I have to think, should I have another drink or not? Like, it takes time, right? Whereas food is so immediate. And so that's why we have to be hyper vigilant about our thought process. And like in the moment, we have to catch ourselves. So we have to pay attention to those triggers, time of day, location. I think tracking your food intake is huge, because if you're aware of what you're eating and when you're eating, and also having an accountability partner. So, you know, working with a coach, or I have a healthy lifestyle support group. So, you know, having people that you know that are on your team, that understand you. Don't go to the person that doesn't understand you. It's only going to make it worse. Go to the person that you know understands you, and having that accountability partner and that support can be really, really helpful in those situations. And the last thing that I'll say is it's a practice. And the idea is that you're never going to be fully cured of emotional eating. Like, it's never going to be completely out of your system. It's never going to be like something you completely overcome. But what you can do, and you can strive to do, is say you used to do it every week or every other day or every night even. And now you're doing it every other week or once a month or once every 3 months. That space that you let it grow in between, that is huge progress. And that's what we're aiming for. Just like not doing it on a regular basis. Like we just said, there's definitely times for it. And it's not quote unquote bad. It's not the worst thing. It's just, if we're doing it constantly, we know it doesn't make us feel good, and we have to do things that help us make us feel better. That's why we try to eat healthier in the first place.
Exactly.
You know, so.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I had. Thank you so much for all of that information.
My
Is there
pleasure.
anything else that, well, tell people how they can find you, and is there anything else you want to say to kind of like wrap up this topic?
Sure. Well, so if anybody wants to ask me any other further questions about emotional eating, you could send me a message directly on Instagram. I'm really active there. You could also email me at tipswithtoni@gmail.com. I am currently running a free scholarship for one mom. So they have to apply. They can work with me for free for 3 months, but they have to apply for that. So if they want to learn more about that scholarship to work with me for free, you go to www.tipswithtoni.com, and you can go to the scholarship link, and you'll find more information about that there.
Awesome. I love that, because moms need,
especially I did it around this time, like back to school time.
Back to school.
It's very stressful. They put their health and wellness on the back burner. So I really wanted to offer it to that one mom that's being the best mom, and which is going to make them an even better mom when they take care of themselves.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. Well, it was so nice hanging out with you, and thank you for all of this information and your time.
Thank you so much. Are you going to post this so it stays up for 24 hours?
You know, I don't know how to do it, so if you tell me how, I will. Okay. Ask you when you end.
So when you end it, I will tell you to do 2 things if you can. Sometimes it's not always, it doesn't always give you the option because it's weird.
Okay.
But when you end it, if you can, press save first. So that way you can actually save the video, and then we could always, if you want to send it to me, I can make a YouTube video out of it or something.
I do want to do that.
There is a way I can download the live. Otherwise, it's just it's quite complicated. But so if you could try to save it and then press post. Don't press delete, just press post. So save first and then post, and then it should be up for 24 hours.
Okay, awesome. I'll do that.
Awesome, Hannah. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you, Toni. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.